I am excited to be talking with Maria Leticia Ossa Daza, and we'll call her Leticia for short. She is the chair of the Latin American practice at Willkie Farr and Gallagher, and she's been doing this for over 2 decades, specifically focused on mergers and acquisitions in so many sectors like finance, tech, infrastructure, consumer goods. She has, in addition to her practice, a bunch of awards, and I'm going to highlight two of them. Latinvex's Top 100 Lawyers in 2022, and then the Legal 500 named her as one of the top lawyers in its power list. So I'm so excited, Leticia, you're here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Alisa, for the invitation. I'm very excited about this conversation.
Leticia, let's start with your identity. How do you identify, and how has that played a role in this career you've had?
Well, that has played a very important role. So I define myself as, an immigrant. I have a very international profile because growing up in Colombia, I went to a French school. So my second language is really French. And then for college, I went to France. So France is a very important country in my heart. I got married there. I started my career there, and then I moved to New York 18 years ago. So as you can see, very international, but with the challenges that you have when you have to adapt, when you have to make friends in a new country, when you have to learn a new culture or a new way to do things. And also a language that is not your native language.
Leticia, I'm hearing that when you were born in Colombia, you moved to France, you picked up many languages, and then now you're in New York and you have this pretty powerful career. I'm curious, Leticia, when you think about how you were able to not just survive, but thrive in a pretty male-dominated, intense, I mean, this is a New York kind of epitome of intensity. I'm curious, what were your thrive strategies when you look at your career and the leader you are now? You're like, oh, I really relied on these insights, these strengths of mine.
So look, growing up, I faced many challenges. When I was 10 years old, I got sick, and I was sick for a while, taking medication. So that made me more persistent and resilient, I would say. And I always knew what I wanted. And when, I said, my parents are lawyers too. And when I said, I want to be a lawyer, I wanted to be the best lawyer. So I have always have in my mind that I have to work hard and just give the best. And just being very disciplined and persistent about what I was doing. So I got a scholarship in France. I was a scholar of the French government during my college at Sciences Po and then La Sorbonne. And I would say that really, really working hard and knowing what I wanted and knowing also that I had the full support of my parents was always one of my biggest strengths. So I knew that no matter what, if I needed to go back to Colombia, or that, there was something that I could go back, and I had my parents there, right? And then when I moved to New York, then I started to build the Latin American practice, having the support of Willkie and my mentors was also very important. But I would say overall, really being persistent has been like really, really my strength, right? And just keep going. And, you have, yes, many things that sometimes, take you down or challenges, but those just like keep going and making, the difference that's really also to play to your advantage, right? It was just like knowing the different languages, being from Colombia, knowing the culture in Latin America, that really moved me to create the Latin American practice.
Leticia, this knowing, it sounds like a few things. One is you knew what you wanted pretty early on, and your parents were very supportive of you, and your hard work focused on this goal helped to pave the path so that when you're in this pretty high affluent and really prestigious role, you're then able to take these foundational skills and strengths and then actually apply them. And so I'm hearing that. Plus, I'm hearing this concept of failure and being able to be resilient even when things don't go as planned. Can you talk about that? And particularly, because it sounds like you use something, some sort of strategy when you fail or when it doesn't go well. Is there, talk about that? Is there an
Yeah.
example you have? What did you apply in terms of your strategy?
So look, honestly, I don't. So when I get asked about failures, like I don't have any to say, like, oh, this time I fail or this time I see more than failures. I see that we have challenges, right? But we learn from everything, and I think if we change really how we see the world and we see those challenges as part of life and things that will help you grow, that makes a huge difference, right? So I had a very tough divorce, but instead of me complaining, oh my god, I have this awful divorce and I have to work at the same time and I have to do this and I have to make sure that my daughter is fine, I took it as a learning experience, and I learned so much about it, that I will not change it. I will just do it again, right? So those, I think, we see sometimes those challenges more as failures, right? And failures to me means like, oh, you have to completely just like stand up again. And if you see them more as challenges, and as part of life, then you just see it more as, okay, this is just keep going on, right? You have to keep, even if you don't see what is there, and sometimes everything seems a little bit blurry and confusing. You just have to keep going and understanding that, honestly, pain is part of life. Challenges are part of life, and the good thing is that they will not stay there forever. So I think that has been really my strategy more than anything.
I love that you don't delineate. There's a failure and then there's a challenge. Actually, life is full of hardship, and hardship isn't necessarily a bad thing because challenges help us be the people we are. And I want to applaud you, Leticia, that you even named that a divorce, which is really painful, actually you would have done it again because you learned so much about yourself, and I'm sure you're stronger for it. I'm curious, Leticia, when you think about being who you are with your Colombian roots and you being in a place where you're not necessarily surrounded, right? You founded this Latin American practice and you have all these insights. So, can you talk about that? Because it's sometimes we see that as a challenge and or even hardship or even a failure. Now, here I am, I'm surrounded by people who don't look like me, don't have the same background, maybe don't understand me. And I'm curious how you approach that challenge and were able to, I mean, here you are thriving as a leader in your organization. What was your perspective for this?
Look, I think at the end of the day, whether you look like the others or whether you have a different path, I think, we all have the talent. Otherwise, we will not make it be there, right? So if we have the talent, and, um, you know that you have it and you know what you can add to the organization, I think then you find your way, to just like talk about it and just like for people to see it. So of course, our servant entrepreneur has been a great mentor and friend. But I remember when I started and I was an associate, and I went to his office to say, look, I have this idea to create a Latin American practice, and this is what I need to start it. And he was fully supported, even if he didn't know me at that time. That was the first time that we were talking, and that was the first time that we were talking about this project. So I think it's really when you have that confidence of believing that you have an idea that could be interesting, that deserves the support. I think then you really get people to believe in it, right? And to convince them also.
Leticia, I wanted to go here. This is a great example of not only did you, one, have an idea, two, you believed in yourself. I have something to contribute. And I, three, am actually going to go and share this idea with a pretty influential person who ended up being your mentor. Those three things are not necessarily practices that everybody uses. And so I'm curious because this idea that you are confident that your ideas have value, where did that come from? Have you always had that? Has that something you built? Because it's really beautiful for women of color to hear that from you and say, you know what, I'm coming in, here I go. I am absolutely of value, and here I go. So can you talk about that?
Like I think my mom has always been. I mean, again, my parents have been my biggest fans and supporters, and I remember that my mom always, when I was getting ready for school, even or to go somewhere, even when I was like really young, right? I remember she was like, "Who is the prettiest girl? Who is the smartest girl?" And I was like, "Of course, me, right?" So she always said that to us, and my cousins, I remember they were like, "Oh my God, your mom is so annoying saying that." But she was always really, she really nurtured like self-confidence on us. And it will be a lie to say that I have always been confident. And of course, I have had many times where I doubt myself, right? And that I talk I think that one thing that will make a difference, and in particular women of color, is just talking about our challenges and saying this, like, oh, there are many times where I don't feel, when I feel the imposter syndrome. There are many times when I don't know whether what I'm saying is the right thing. And that knowing that even people that we see that are very confident and that have stellar careers do doubt themselves sometimes and do have an imposter syndrome really helps, right? But I think it's something that, and I try to do it with my daughter. It's not, and my parents were very realistic at the same time. I used to play basketball and they were like, "Oh, you really suck at it." They were like, "We are not." They won once, I remember, and this was on the weekends. And they won once and said, like, "Okay, this is the first and last weekend we're coming to see you because you're not really made to play basketball." And you can feel like, "Oh my God, that's awful." Well, no, because I wasn't really good, right? There were things that I was really good at and others that, that I wasn't. So they did encourage me to keep going if that's what I wanted to do. But they were like, "Look, it is not really your thing." Um, and that helped me. Instead of just like me saying, "Oh, they don't trust my talent." Well, they were just also clear about the things that I was more talented at.
Leticia, when you name that experience with your parents, first that they were filling you with love, especially your mom, and validating and reminding you about your intelligence and your beauty and all of those things, it's such a beautiful foundation. And at the same time, it wasn't like, Leticia, you're perfect. You do all the things really well, and you're a fabulous basketball player. In fact, they named for you. No, you're actually not good. And that's okay. But just so you know, we're not going to come again. So it's this realistic, you can be honest and also validate. And it has allowed you then, as you have had some self-doubt, right? Many women of color do, to say, and I can do hard things and I will get past this. So taking that idea and applying it to the situation of, I have this idea about a Latin American practice. I believe in myself to go and share that idea. And three, to actually go to a person with influence and power to name it. I think that's such an amazing career move, because then you founded the practice and you ended up, now you're a leader and you're continuing to have impact. And so I want to name that as a strategy, because it's not something in the playbook, right? When you go to school and they're like, here's how to rise in your career, it's often do a good job with what's given to you, and make sure that you get performance reviews that show you're doing your job. And often it doesn't include, actually think outside the box, think about your unique skill, your unique background, and how can you therefore use your lens, your special lens, to come up with an idea that could help the business. And sure, maybe it won't be the perfect idea, but go and have value in that and actually advocate. So I want to name that because it's often, you don't see that written in books or in articles, and career advice are often like, go and do a good job with what you have versus like think outside the box. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I know, and that's completely right. You know, one of the things that that I do a lot with my team and with my mentees is telling them that, right? I feel like my role as a leader is not having people that will just mimic what I do or just like, no, I tell them my experience, but I do want to get the best version of themselves. And finding those things, like asking them to think outside the box, to come to me and come with a business plan and say, okay, these are the things that I'm really good at. These, I think, are my strengths. These are the things that I need to improve. And this is how I see myself in the next 5 years. Because then, you know, people are also accountable to it, right? So we need to work towards a goal. And I think that's so important. So we're doing that. I love to do it at the end of the year because, you know, that's a good time to reflect about what you have accomplished on the year that is ending and what you want to propose and have in mind for next year. And you know, and they will just prepare their business plan and send it to me by January 15th, so we can work together on that through the year.
Leticia, this leadership advice that you give your mentees and your team and actually practice, because you're giving me specific dates of when you're going to wrap up the year and then when it's due in January. It's such a nice call out to the fact that we all have different strengths and we all have different needs and we all have different goals. And that's okay. That there's no, here's your career path. You are here, you're going to do what I say, you're going to work on the projects I say, you're going to have this linear path. In actuality, it's a collaboration, right? It's with both the manager, both the leader, and the people, and saying, well, what is it that you want to do? What are your strengths? What is your vision for your career? And then how can we merge that, right? With company needs, with the team goals. What ideas do you have? It can be a synchronous, like a synchronicity path where we are working together in service of each other. Like we don't have to be, the organization has goals and you have goals and we're at opposition. In fact, together we can, I think, even value diversity, equity, inclusion, because we talk about that and we're like, okay, we need professional development. And yes, we do, but also, do you know your people enough so that you can ask, cultivate those strengths and interests, and then merge them with business needs? So I just want to call that out because often with DEI, we don't talk about, do you know your people? Do you know that they're special and they're unique and different? And that's great. Do you know that? So I love that because I know you care a lot about DEI as well.
Yes, and you know, seeing them that they are all different and they all have, you know, different ways to get to different places is just amazing. I mean, it is really, I really think that is being authentic. That we will be able, that will be our best version, right? I mean, we don't have to be somebody else, and in the way we dress, in the way we talk, in so many others. Like, you know, I used to be more conscious about having an accent. And again, the English, I learned English when I was probably 10 years old, 11. But I learned French when I was 4 years old, right? So the pronunciation, and you know, my daughter speaks 3 languages completely fluently, and she says like, "Mom, the pronunciation is this," and I cannot really hear the difference because I wasn't used to listening to English all the time. But I speak more than 3 languages, right? So that's fantastic. So instead of me being so conscious about my, you know, the accent that I have or mispronouncing, well, I tell myself I speak more than 3 languages, which is great. So it's really seeing all those things that make you different and authentic, that, doesn't matter. Like, I'm really cool, even with a little bit of accent, right?
Leticia, I want to talk more about that because authenticity is sometimes a fear, right? If I'm my authentic self, oh my gosh, people will think that I'm an Asian person and wow, I'm actually I I don't, I don't meet this stereotype or I do meet this stereotype. Now I think that I'm an athlete and that's who am I to say that I run marathons or whatever else? Who am I to lead in a very soft way or a more aggressive, I used to be in the military sort of way. And I want to talk about your leadership because authenticity seems to be important for you as a leader and also you as a mother and also you as someone who helps cultivate mentees and your team. So I want to talk about how you, with the multiple languages, and you gave a great example of accents. Can you talk about you as an authentic leader? And particularly, was there a time when you were doubting, like, should I really show up in my authentic way as a leader? And then maybe what you learned from that and how you then pivoted to being so authentic. What were the lessons learned as you became this really authentic person that you are now?
So I think it came out naturally, I will say, with the evolution of me. Just like, with just like becoming more confident, and also growing in my career. I think it's just things that are just simple as, as the way you dress, right? So lawyers, all like they are very or black or blue or dark blue or gray, right? And you don't use any other colors. Well, I love yellow, right? Or I love red. And just like saying, yeah, I can wear yellow. I can just like wear a dress instead of wearing just like, the black suit. Um, that also gave me the strength to just be more myself, like, dancing at the holiday party, because I love to dance, and actually, people love to dance too. That also, became just part of me, right? Because part of my culture is that we love to dance, or that we talk with the hands. So things like that you start seeing and you start saying and feeling more comfortable, or talking about your roots, right? And also, just like, yeah, gaining that confidence. And I'm so proud that to see now, the first Met opera in Spanish, Florencia en el Amazonas is fantastic. Seeing, I was at the Kennedy awards on last week or a week before, and Gloria Stefan opened it with conga. So just like also seeing more of the Latinx community coming up and just becoming stronger, like also helps to say, oh, this is great. Like, going back to your roots and actually praise them is a great thing. So that, I think, is those are things like that come with becoming more confident, and just understanding that, yes, those things that make you very authentic are part of your brand, are part of you.
The examples you shared with us, Leticia, of how you became more confident and then actually leaned more into who you are with your dress, with not being so focused on the accent and more focused on your assets in terms of being able to speak so many languages and then seeing representation from from society, right? Like these are people who are being recognized who've always existed in terms of talent, and now we're seeing that talent more represented across the different arts and business with you, as well as with the the dance floor. I mean, I want to name that because often at a holiday party, right, Leticia, people are a little bit hesitant to get on the dance floor and show their softer side, and to be able to get out there and break those traditional thoughts, those stereotypes that you actually you can be a full person. You can be a great leader, and you're founded this Latin American practice, you're having a ton of impact, and you also love to dance, and you also love color, and you can use your hands. And that is not a knock actually on your leadership. It's actually part of your leadership and part of your brand. So I'd love to ask one question about brands. And if you were to say, when I think about brand, if I were to advise a woman of color who's trying to find their feet, trying to sort out, well, Leticia, I'm in an industry, it's white male dominated, and there's a couple of people of color, mostly male. I want to do what you're doing, but I don't really know where to start. I don't really know what a brand is. Can you share, here's some tips about how to be able to do that so that they can get to where you are and then out on the dance floor, however they want to express themselves?
Sure. So, look, I think when I started the Latin American practice, one of the things that I did, and I think we need to do, is like, what makes me different? And what I think. So I'm really writing that, right? Like, this is what makes me different. These are the products that currently exist. These are the different practices that are out there, and how can I differentiate myself from them? What are the things that Willkie will do better? What are the things that I can do better? What things I bring to the table that others are not doing? And really, I don't think we sometimes think about it on a very organized way, right? Because again, I sat and I wrote everything, and I have been adding to it, right? Every time that I hear, because I didn't want to bring the same things that all the practices, that existing practices were bringing. Otherwise, how can I compete with them? But knowing that you can compete on a different level, knowing that you can do things differently, and what is the value that you can add, whether it's on a practice, whether it's you. Those are things that are really important, and I think we don't think about them enough. I always say, and actually we should teach more in college about it. I do believe we are our brand, right? Like, I want to be identified with this. This is what I think my leadership brings to the table. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be authentic. I want to talk about, the things that I see as the challenges that I have had. I want to be honest. I want to be open about it. Like, those are things. These are the other things. Like, this is the pro bono work that I want to do. So identifying those things really help you to start building yourself, building your career, building who you want to be, who you are, and also building a practice or a business.
Leticia, I'm hearing a few things. First is that we should do a self-assessment for ourselves where we bring something unique to, because of our difference, no one else or very few people have. And so what are our unique qualities that we can recognize? So I hear that. Second, I hear, what does the organization need that I uniquely can contribute to? What are ideas that I can have that will drive the bottom line? So I hear that, the merging with organizational need and our uniqueness. And the third thing I hear is there's a piece of our brand that we actually can craft, because often we walk on our day to day. Leticia, here I am. There's not a lot of strategic thought, but actually I can get clear about my brand. And my brand isn't just, here are all my accomplishments, Leticia, on my resume, but actually there's a lot of power to the struggle or the challenge and how I overcame them. There is struggle, there is the vulnerability that could help be part of my brand, showing up authentically, not trying to be perfect. And then also the big dreams about helping others, philanthropy, pro bono work, that is part of something you care about, but also part of your brand. And so how can we share all of that and be more open, because that helps us develop not just our professional resume, but actually our full authentic selves. I love that so much. I wish I had learned that earlier. Often we talk about MBA programs and leadership, but where do we talk about brand, an authentic brand? So that's so beautiful.
Yes, and I think, I mean, it's something that I have been thinking more and more about it, right? And really helps. I mean, you said that you say something about perfectionism. Like, I have been fighting my perfectionist side my whole life, and and it's funny because I talk to my parents, and it's not something. I mean, they were very driven. They were great at their own careers and practices, but I don't think they were as perfectionist as I am, and that's something that I have also learned to manage and to say, look, it's fine. I don't need to be perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not perfect, and I love to be imperfect because that's the way I can keep learning, right? And being curious about other things, and about, well, one thing is that I recently, we were talking about right before we started, like accomplishments or things that highlights of the year. Last year, I started writing, and I wrote when I was 17 years old, 18 years old, and I was in high school, and I really enjoy it. But I didn't do it after I started again last year. So after a while, and of course I write contracts, but not writing for fun about any topic, and that I have enjoying it. I have been enjoying it so much. So those are things that, when you think about things that you liked before and that you stopped doing, those things just like start coming back, and I love it, and I think I'm good about it, and those but it's just like also giving your space to be curious, to have quiet time to just think about other things that you want to do also, and that is so important. Otherwise, we just like keep going on with our day to day, and forget about other things that are really important.
Leticia, this pause and to reconnect with ourselves. And there are some childhood loves that we might have forgotten. And so hearing that yours included writing and how you've brought that back, and that's okay. And that actually, if we look at our journey as a place of possibility and dreams, and that if we have space to access those dreams, how powerful that we can continue on our journey to learn and fall down and have hardship, that actually those are ways that we get stronger. And it's okay. In fact, not just okay, but it's part of it. That's the only way we can get stronger, is if actually there's sometimes where it's hard. And I love that you're leaning into that, because it's not like you, okay, now I've got, PhD in writing. People often are like, I need all of these degrees, Leticia, right?
Yes.
Before I get to do the thing I care about, first, I need all of this validation to show, as a woman of color, as a person, I can write. But actually, you can just write and then see how it goes. And you'll learn something, and maybe you make some mistakes, and that's okay, because the point is that you're following your inner compass. So I love that so much.
Yes, and then you are like, if you fight with your perfectionist side, then nothing will be perfect, right? So every time that I used to read it, and I was reading it again, my column, because I publish columns at La República, which is a financial newspaper in Colombia. So I was writing 4 or 3 per month, and if my perfectionist will stop me, then I couldn't get anything done, right? So learning also that, okay, there are some that I like more, there are some others that I thought they were just okay, but just keep it coming, and you learn, and you don't need to be perfect to start to do something, or you don't need to do, as you said, have a PhD to be able to write. Well, start, and then people would read it or not, but the most important thing is that for me it is important and I enjoy it.
That's right. First, do you like it? Can we just do what we enjoy and then just go at it versus be in our heads? Should I do it? Do I have enough? Is this okay? Oh no. Just do it. Do it, and see what happens. So I love that. Leticia, are you ready for our lightning round questions?
Sure.
Okay. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Cooking or takeout?
Takeout.
Climb a mountain or jump from a plane?
Climb a mountain.
Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
No.
How would you rate your karaoke skills on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Mariah Carey?
Well, I think I love to sing, but I don't think I sing that well. So I don't know. I think it will be more in the middle, I will say, more around 5.
What's a recent book you read?
Recent book. I read what has been, well, I was reading yesterday 12 Cuentos Peregrinos. I don't know how you say it in English, I'm sorry. But from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, because those are, the short stories that he tells. And I was reading that with my daughter just yesterday.
What's a favorite way to practice self-care?
My quiet time every morning. So I wake up early and I work out and I do my meditation, and that's just my me time that I need every day.
What's a good professional development you've done?
Well, being part of the executive committee has been a great highlight for this year.
Congrats on that. What's your definition of a boss mama?
A boss mama. I think we all are a little bit. So it's it's inevitable just like not to be a little bit bossy sometimes, but I think just like also let your children just be themselves is great. So hopefully I'm not too bossy with my daughter.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Trust you more.
And then where can we find you? Any social media accounts, LinkedIn?
So on LinkedIn, I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I think it's just Leticia Ossa Daza. On Instagram, I just like keep it more private.
Sounds good. And then last question, do you have a final ask, recommendation, or any parting thoughts?
Well, one thing is that whatever seems impossible, can be possible if you really trust yourself and work hard. I think I have learned that, and really learn from the challenges. Like ask yourself every time that you have a challenge, what can I learn? And I think that really helps you through life.
So good. Thank you so much, Leticia, for all this. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.